The president versus the Congresswoman. The big guy lashing out tonight. The Congresswoman fighting back.
One Republican Congresswoman said students who rack up student loan debt are just sitting on their butts.
But there's a big but. Did she really say that, or is the president just using her as a prop to prop up more cheap student loans? We're going to ask her, because she's here. Then, Apple stock soaring. Its business booming. That's the headline, but read the fine print, and you're going to find maybe things ain't that fine for the entire economy. Also, by my math, we have lost more the more we rescue. I warned you, bail them out, everyone will pay up, and we'll never dig out. Now we know. I was right. And apparently it's worse than even I thought. Tonight, the watchdog with the proof. The show that's always watching your cash starts now. We don't need to be a math major to add it up. College debt is piling up. And maybe that is why the White House is so fired up. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you. I'm Neil Cavuto. President Obama today continues his push to keep interest rates for students down and calling one Congresswoman out. The president giving Representative Virginia Foxx the third degree for saying that college kids shouldn't complain about the cost of their degree. In a minute, the North Carolina Republican here to blast back. But first, Lori Rothman on the public smackdown that started it all. Hey, Lori.
Hey there. That is correct, Neil. President Obama continuing his push, of course, to keep college loan interest rates low today with a visit to the University of Iowa. While critics are saying this is nothing more than a campaign tour for younger voters, House Republicans also getting ready to roll out a bill to stop those rates from going up. Still, Republican Virginia Congresswoman Virginia Foxx not so sympathetic to the burden college kids are taking on.
I have very little tolerance for people who tell me that they graduate with $200,000 of debt or even $80,000 of debt because there's no reason for that. We live in an opportunity society, and people are forgetting that. You don't sit on your butt and have it dumped in your lap.
Okay, President Obama all but mocking the Congresswoman's comments, and the crowd at the University of North Carolina yesterday eating it up.
She said she had very little tolerance for people who tell me they graduate with debt because there's no reason for that. I'm just quoting here. I'm just quoting. She said students who rack up student loan debt are just sitting on their butts, having opportunity dumped in your lap. Can you imagine saying something like that?
Well, all those low rates creating a flood of cash in the system, but critics of the college debt load say the easy money lets students make bad business decisions, if you will. Don't borrow $100,000 if you plan on majoring in something like Scandinavian literature. Other ways to stop the bubble: stop the government from backing these loans and forgive them in bankruptcy. So banks won't be too thrilled, of course, with that plan, but can this fragile economy really handle another meltdown? It's like the subprime mortgage crisis all over again.
That's the problem with Scandinavian literature. All right, Lori, thank you very much. Amazing, huh? Well, Republican Congresswoman Virginia Foxx responding for the first time on national TV. Congresswoman, now he didn't mention you by name, but he was talking about you. Now, we heard your remarks, heard on the radio. That's not what you said, but he made it very clear to this crowd, or wanted to, that's what he said you said. How do you feel about this?
Well, Neil, thank you very much for having me on, and a special thanks for playing my comments and what the president said. Your audience can draw its own conclusions. What the president's doing, I think, is doing everything possible to deflect from his failed policies and the failures of his administration. Obviously, the cost of college and universities going up and up and up. I'd like to see those costs come down. But we're not going to solve this problem with the president simply casting stones. We need to work together to solve the problems that our students are facing and that our economy is facing. And we should be doing that. You know, the president had no plan for this in his own budget. He didn't make a proposal for it. And the other thing that's a bit misleading about this, Neil, is that any change in the interest rate will only affect those students who borrow next year. It won't be, or this coming year, it won't affect the 36 million students who already have loans. And it's a very small percentage.
So let me ask you about that, Congresswoman. Then, what did you mean then? Were you saying that the students shouldn't pile up that kind of debt, or what were you talking about?
Well, Neil, I got an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, and a doctoral degree without borrowing any federal money at all. And I know that it's possible to do that. I worked and went to school at the same time. I think we've raised the cost of college way too high. The more federal dollars we put into financial aid, the higher the cost of college goes. So I think that we need to make sure that the colleges are being transparent in what they're charging students. I think we need to bring down the cost of going to college. But I also think that students need to be well aware of the commitments that they're making and be a lot more careful about those commitments. We really do. Students are being burdened by huge debts, and it's unnecessary.
So you're saying, Congresswoman, that by constantly doing these tax break extensions or keeping rates artificially low for loans, it's actually encouraging and pushing the colleges to keep raising tuition to more than offset that, right?
That's exactly right.
So then how do you feel? So I guess my follow-up there, ma'am, is how do you feel about Mitt Romney saying he would be for this extension? I know he says it should be paid for, but this extension to keep the rates from doubling here, would you be against that? Because there's going to be a vote in the House on Friday on this very issue.
Well, actually, I'm going to the Rules Committee in just a few minutes myself, Neil, because we're going to have the rule and the bill brought to the Rules Committee. Let's be clear about this, Neil. The Democrats created a mess when they did this. Republicans warned them this was a mistake to do this, and they wouldn't listen to us. We knew the chickens would come home to roost. What we have to do is have a long-term solution to this problem, and Republicans are working on that.
Sorry to jump on you again, but when Mitt Romney says, go ahead and extend it another year, some conservatives in your party, Congresswoman, have said, no, this is a bad signal you're sending, Mitt Romney. What do you say?
Well, you know, there may be a way to pay for this that will bring us a good solution to it. I'll be looking at the bill and seeing where we're going with this, because the Speaker and the Majority Leader are working very hard to solve this problem, and we need to solve it. But our country, as you've said so many times, Neil, I watch you a lot, we have a real problem on our hands. The federal government has set the tone for borrowing and being irresponsible in our borrowing. We need to change that tone in this country and bring responsibility. The federal government needs to be a role model for everybody in the country, and that's the way we're going to do it. Republicans want a chance to have a long-term solution, and we're working for that.
Congresswoman, thank you very much. We thought it was fair for people to hear your full remarks on that, showing where you were coming from. I don't think you've been given a fair shot in the media on that. But Congresswoman, thank you very much.
Thanks, Neil. Let's do a whole show on this. It's a complicated issue, needs a lot more explanation.
Well, I'm not going to do a whole show on it, but it's a good idea. All right, in the meantime,